Welcome back to the Blissful Badger. Today, I wanted to talk about matching paint schemes. Occasionally, you might have some models that you've painted in the past, or you've purchased secondhand, and you want to match the colors. If you painted them in the past, you may have written down the colors, but maybe you didn't, or maybe you don't have those paints anymore. Today, I'm going to go through some BattleTech minis that I purchased secondhand, and I have two that I need to paint up to match what I already have. Seen here, I have a primed white mini and three painted black. Now, black isn't a hard color to match, but having the proper weathering and edge highlighting can be a little bit trickier. And I also have this lance of three green mechs and a primed white mini that I want to add to that lance. The goal here is not to make a perfect match, but have a consistent enough look that it doesn't look out of place. For the Hunchback, I need to make a green that matches similar enough to the Jaeger mech and the other two. This green seems just about right, but maybe a little bit on the light side. Light is fine, because we can always darken it down a little bit. And dark is also fine, because we can lighten it up a little bit. Again, we're trying to make them close to the same, not exact. If we wanted exact, we'd probably repaint the whole thing. To match the black, I decided to do 2 coats of Grim Black speed paint over the mech, which will leave some of the edges a little bit brighter and get it close to the black that I want. After I did a coat of green, I decided I needed to do a second coat to fully cover the mech. After 2 coats of Grim Black, I went over and did a light dry brush of off-white along the edges. 2 of the mechs also needed this dry brush. The Atlas looked fine how it was. After a quick highlight of the canopy color, I went red here. It was time to do an overall wash, and I went with Null Oil. Again, I started painting these slightly brighter than the actual mechs that I was trying to duplicate, because I knew that the Null Oil would eventually dull it down a little bit. Now here's where it gets interesting. Since I was trying to match the other 3 of each of these lances, I decided to hit all of the weapons in steel. And this way, after another Null Oil coating over those, they have now been brought together, and I've touched up all of the mechs. And just to make sure it was tied in, you can still tell, if you look, which one I was painting. Best way to fix that is basing. So after 2 coats of brown, you can barely tell which one was the one I painted, and the ones that were already painted. I could go one step further and do a textured base, or another dry brush, or more weathering, and it would tie in even more. But these are definitely battle ready now, and I'm happy to add another 2 lances to my collection. When it comes to battles and battlefield coloring, consistency does not have to be identical. If anything, you're going to get different fading and battle grime and dust on models, and they're not going to all match perfectly. So take that into consideration, and don't be so particular about how you paint your models. It's okay if a unit looks differently to another unit. So long as you're using roughly the same colors and techniques, or even, you know, not the same techniques, they should look good together and cohesive across the army in the end. Having a little bit of variety is actually a nice addition to your army and makes it stand out just a little bit more than a sea of monocolored, similar troops. I have lots of painting left to do, so until the next time, subscribe if you haven't so that you don't miss any future videos. I also want to thank my patrons and supporters for making these videos possible. And until next time, I hope you find your bit of bliss.